Naxx has shattered all expectations is the name of his video. Can I pull this up? Yep, there it is. Okay, pause the music. Pause the music. Pause the music. Willie, what's going on with Naxx, and how exactly has it shattered people's expectations? Let me take a look here.
Gentleman Willie here. Naxx is
Classic
out,
time.
and it has been cleared as expected within the same day that it was released.
Yep.
But not in the same hour for once. The European Guild Progress took home the first prize, putting on a true show of meticulous preparation and game knowledge. Their clear taking a very impressive 1 hour and about 25 minutes. Quite unlike every raid that's come before, though, this final tier of Classic wasn't just about who got into the raid instance first, actually being basically guaranteed to win. Naxx has so far proven to be a genuine challenge for, well, everyone really. From the guys who cleared this place on numerous fan servers, the players putting in time on the PTR to perfect their strats, or your dad guild heading in there for the first time to see what all the fuss is about. Naxx is no joke. On the night of the release of the raid, I did a video and I thought...
Now, real quick, before we move on, I wanted to watch something I saw. Yeah, okay, I have not seen this. It's called Four Horsemen on Easy Mode. I saw that it's by Gropey's Someone in Progress, and this is of Tetsu. Is Progress already cleaving all four horses down at once? I figured this would be like the final step of Naxx. Can you cleave all four bosses down at the same time? Let me full screen this, and let's see if they're doing that. Are they doing that? They're stacking all four up. Wait, no they're not. Okay. They are... stacking two of them. They're stacking two of them. And just smashing the living fuck out of them. Okay.
They're melting. Can
Yeah.
we do it?
Jesus fucking Christ.
Four horsemen cleave, boys.
Big.
Oh, I don't have my shadow bound. Let me get that on my bars. I'll probably need.
He's at 2 stacks. He's at 3 stacks. Down goes one.
Alright.
And now for the other.
Shadow prot now. There it is, boys. The cleave.
In 2 stacks. Or in, yeah, 3 stacks. Wow. Fuck. That's fast. That's fucking fast. The next step. Do you think by the end of Classic, are we going to see a 4-horse stack cleave stack? Are we going to see all 4 horses in 1 stack getting cleaved at once? By the end of Classic, yeah, like I bet that we probably will. Let me pull up the Willy video. Yeah, I bet that we probably will.
It's going to be harder than AQ40, right? But not like actually hard, surely. Well, let's just say I'm waiting a bit more time. And
you know what, Tetsu? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm dumb. Yeah, you're right. You can't cleave Zelly due to the chains. Yeah, you're right. I wonder... Yeah, you'll probably see a 3, but not a 4. Like, that would be my guess, maybe.
Until we look at the progress stats breakdown for Tier 3. I'll do it after the second reset has concluded. But for now, I just want to take a look at how the raid played out at the top end for once.
Okay.
Usually it's not an area I touch on overly, but it really does go some way to show that Naxx ain't easy. So you may hear, well, the raid was cleared in about an hour and a half. It can't be that hard, right? Yeah, and Limit or whichever guild's gonna blast through Mythic Castle Nafria within the space of a week, probably. It doesn't make it easy, not at all. In fact, similar to retail, the prep work put in advance really came off to show for this raid, and it's actually ended up being perhaps the first tier where even high-end guilds will experience some form of progression. And for the guilds who had already been progressing in AQ40 or perhaps even BWL, well, Naxx is going to be on a totally different level in more ways than one. In fact, even if...
Makes you wonder, like, dude, like, PTRing raids is so fucking powerful. It makes you wonder, like, let's say... If you took Limit, for example, like the #1 retail WoW guild, and gave them a mythic, Castle Nathria PTR, and let them practice on it for 4 months, as much as they wanted, would they be able, with item level like 190 gear, to go in and one-shot every boss on day 1 Mythic Castle Nathria, if they were able to PTR for several months prior with like 190 gear? Really makes you wonder, like, they I kind of doubt it. Like, I don't know. I kind of doubt it. Typically, guilds have to go through at least one reset, like one lockout reset, in order to get more gear to boost their eye level by another 5 or so. You typically see that happening. It depends on like how tightly tuned the raid is, but they would definitely like do really fucking well. Like, it'd be really close. What's up, Pills? Hey, dude. It'd be
If
fucking
your guild
close,
just
man.
saw up to Sapphiron in the first week, you are in a much
see, what the fuck
smaller
am I
group
doing?
of players than you
Through
may
them all.
expect. But back around to the top guilds, what made the perfect run possible? Because many of them lost a lot of players or just straight up wiped. And a wipe in Classic, unlike Retail, is usually considered game over. You can't recover from the loss of power that world buffs give you, right? Well,
That's
it
not
turns
fair.
out you sort of can, because checking the logs of the top guilds, very few of them just have 40 players overall. In fact, there are a number of reasons going into why guilds opted to swap people in and out so heavily, and to a degree that's not been seen in any raid tier previous to that.
Well, okay, Tetsu. In your run, how many actual humans were involved? Like, how many individual real-life living humans stepped foot in that ID in your first run? Because, and I'm not counting, like, you swapping on your paladin. That's one human on 2 characters, right? So how many actual humans? Is it 41 humans, 42 humans, 43 humans? Like 44? Okay, interesting. Interesting.
Naxx Ramus. This is definitely in part down to how Naxx is designed, as well as different encounters heavily
It's crazy because, I don't know if you guys know this, like, you know, Limit, for example, they have like a 10 or 15 player bench. You know, like they have, you know, for example, I can speak a lot like the Mythic, like Ajara race, because I was there for that. You know, like prot paladins weren't good that raid tier for that race, so they had like their prot paladin guy. He was sitting on the bench. He didn't even step foot in the raid. He didn't like participate in the race because prot paladins weren't good. So they have like extra people that they don't use or do use depending on what's going on, right?
favoring certain classes. For example, you just finished Construct Quarter but had 2 or 3 people lose
Kevin
world
Jordan,
buffs.
hey,
If you have
dude.
others waiting, you can easily rotate them in as you teleport
Today was a
straight
big
back to
day.
the entrance
It's a big
with
day.
basically next to no downtime. This wouldn't have been a thing in any other raid, as you would either have to have summoned them or let them run to you once they
How is
get
Kevin not
inside,
VIP?
let alone the challenge of actually getting inside a raid by yourself without being ganked on PvP servers. There are some more melee unfriendly encounters in Naxx, especially the last 2. Sapphiron, range can keep DPSing a bit more during the air phase.
Yeah, so when we go into Naxx this week with the B team, I'm gonna be on the Warlock the entire time until we get to Saffron. And maybe KT, I'll swap off the Warlock onto the Holy Paladin. Maybe later I'll do a full clear on the Warlock, but I think for the sake of progression, Saffron, Holy Paladin, KT, probably Holy Paladin also. Having those swaps, because we're gonna run with Saffron, I think with 5 Paladins and like a total of maybe 13 or 14 healers on Saffron. And then maybe kind of similar numbers for KT. It's just so fucking powerful to run it that way, right? There was a guild I saw that ran 16 healers for Saffron. 16 fucking healers, man. It's wild.
As well as KT for the Void Zones and Frostblast. Both of these are a big hindrance for melee. There are also encounters that benefit certain classes much more than others. Shadow Priests are incredible on Lotheb. Vampiric Embrace is a real carry for your group-wide heals. They're also very good on Resuvius and Felina for mind controls, as they should already be having the hit cap to make sure those mind controls go smoothly. Shadow Priests are even solid on Sapphiron. That group-wide damage is no joke when Frost Aura is constantly hitting your whole party. It is at the expense of other debuff slots though, and Shadow Priests take up a lot of debuff slots. You'd probably see even more of them if they didn't, but their unique utility really starts to shine in Naxx. 8 Warriors, of course, has seemed to be the way to go for.
Would you see a lot more Shadow Priests if they didn't take up debuff slots? Maybe a couple more. I really don't think you'd see many more. A couple more, but not a lot more, probably.
4 Horsemen so far. There was some talk about possibly being able to just blast through it so quickly that the mechanics wouldn't matter and you could just get through it, but their shield wall usage at certain health thresholds makes this pretty much a no-go, and your whole raid has to do the fight properly. Paladins and Shaman are as great as ever. You are already going to have a bunch of them in your raid, I'm sure, but Sapphiron and KT are a real test on healers. Many guilds opting for 12 to 16 on their first clear. Over half the raid spamming heals. That really is just how intense it.
Okay, so, you know, flash forward 3 months. Flash forward 3 or 4 months. Are we gonna see a full Naxx clear with 9 healers? You know, we've seen Blackbean Layer and AK40 speedruns with with 9 healers. I think there was even one. It was a pretty reasonably fast run I saw with 8 healers. Like, it's probably not best, but it's been done right. What is the lowest healer count we're gonna see in a Naxx run? I don't think we're gonna see below 10. Like, it's a very it's rough, dude. It's rough.
It gets. Frost resistance totems and auras are absolutely invaluable. 60 extra is no joke. Oh, and by the way, if you are assigned to be in a group that doesn't have a Shaman or Paladin, bring along a magic resistance potion. They don't stack with the auras though, but 50 extra frost res is definitely worth picking up. In terms of swapping players in, some guilds used, no exaggeration, upwards of 60 to 70 players total in their first full clear. You might be thinking that
60 to 70 players. Well, wow, look at that guild on the bottom. Which guild is that? Which guild is that? Some horde guild. Wait, who is that? Wait, I'm trying to like recognize names. Which fucking guild is this? Oh, this is Onslaught. Yeah, this is Onslaught. Jesus Christ. Holy fuck. Wow.
That's cheating the system a bit, but hey, this is a thing in retail too. You fit your comp best you can to overcome the challenge. And as we will see in a moment, looking at some logs, there had been players who had been raid logged for nearly 3 weeks. 3 weeks to keep those incredibly powerful Dark Moon Fair buffs running. 10% extra damage is just too huge to pass up. But of course, the main reason people were swapped out was just for world buffs. The power gap they give, as we've seen across other raid tiers, is upwards or around of 30% increased performance, which is just too much to miss out on when you're competing at the top level. Speaking of competing at the top level, it's not just all about world buffs. Oh no, we're gonna need some consumables. A lot of consumables. Naxx is expensive to raid, like really expensive. Funny thing is, top guilds would probably be spending a whole lot less than more average guilds if they weren't chain popping flasks like they're nothing. Because if you don't wipe and you clear really fast, you don't need to repop consumes. This is something I thought for a while.
I'm gonna say, man, I'm just gonna say it. RMT is ruining Classic WoW. Like, the disgusting, shameless amount of RMT going on in this game has taken away so much of the fun of Classic WoW. Like, it has seriously done so much fucking damage. RMT, real money trading, people buying gold, people selling gold, people buying characters, people selling characters, real money trading. Yeah, it has done so much fucking damage this game, man. Like, more than anyone would probably recognize. It's been so detrimental.
Well, boss, for raids, clear faster. You need less consumables, so less time gold farming, and more time doing other stuff you want to. So world buffs save you gold and time in and out of raid. That's your big brain take for today. Anyway, looking at Progress's world first Naxx, let's see what they went through. These are all popped during the raid, by the way. The little lines here show exactly at which point during the log they were used. So we have nearly 100 greater shadow protection potions, 133 greater frost protection potions, 16 flasks of titans used like really expensive health potions, 28 flasks of petrification. These basically make you immune to all effects and remove debuffs with no cooldown, exactly like divine intervention in your bag, but you can use it on yourself, and no paladin has to sacrifice themselves. So they are pretty insane when you need to remove an undispellable debuff, like the one from the gargoyle trash mobs, or if something just goes wrong in general, you can instantly correct it. Looking at another guild, Onslaught here, the first horde guild.
I don't know, like, let me ask you this. Do you guys like that playing Classic WoW at a high level is so, like, cost and, in essence, time prohibitive? Insofar as, if you want to play at a high level, you want to parse or speedrun, you have to, like, really fucking all in with your entire life. You have to invest a fuck ton of time. And even if you're buying gold, let's say you buy 100k gold and you spend as much gold as you want, you remove gold farming from the equation, you still have to spend a fuck ton of time, right? First off, you have multiple characters. You gotta be able to do split runs. Those characters have to be geared, enchanted. 2, you gotta get world buffs on multiple characters each week. I know personally in my guild, and this, you know, we started seeing these players fall off in, like, you know, late phase 1, phase 2. People that were very good gamers, excellent gamers, that were really, really good at League of Legends, like Diamond or Challenger League players, or Mythic Raiders from Retail WoW, or just generally very good gamers that heard about Classic WoW, wanted to give it a try, were really cool, really good, really good players, great assets, smart, knowledgeable, etc. And after a couple months of playing Classic, you know, these are guys that want to play games at a high level. These are gamers, right? They were like, yeah, like fuck classic. Like I if I'm playing a game, I want to play it at a high level, but in order to play this game at a high level, it takes too much time. Like it's not worth it pretty much. It's like one of those situations. So they just quit. They just quit because it's like if you're going to play a game, you want to be able to play at a high level, and so they're not going to settle for less. So if it takes that much time, they're not going to do it. So I don't know, like you guys know how I feel about world buffs. I think getting rid of world buffs would solve that a lot. Like I think probably lowering the you know, opening up the gate that's kind of keeping people out a little bit is probably a good thing. I don't know, like there's a good argument to just let the game be what it is though. I don't know. Not everyone has to participate. I understand that.
General, you can instantly correct it. Looking at another guild, Onslaught here,
Yeah,
the first Horde guild to complete a clear. Big congrats who used, let's just say, a lot of players after things went a bit south at Four Horsemen. Happens to the best of us. And by the way, far few Horde guilds have completed Naxx so far compared to Alliance. Paladin's OP, but let's see what they went through in
Skirk,
1 night
dude.
of raiding.
Thank you.
We have 191 greater
Appreciate it.
shadow protection potions, 156 greater frost protection potions, 58 greater stone shield pots, 48 petri flasks, 37 titans.
Staysafe is Bastion Classic. I mean, hey, listen. There is not a perfect game in existence. No game is perfect. There are things like it's funny because Kevin Jordan is in the chat. So guys, Kevin Jordan here, VIP in the chat, really nice guy. He was one of the original game designers for Classic WoW. He designed a lot of, I think most of the work he did was on like designing classes. Actually, he was a class designer primarily, I believe. Like this is my opinion. It'd be maybe I'll call Kevin someday and we can talk about this, or maybe you can just give me your thoughts in chat. There are a lot of things in Classic WoW that go on that I would honestly count as like exploitative gameplay that have just like become the meta. World buffs being one of them. I think using like, you know, elaborate summoning alt networks with logged out level 20 warlocks with full bags of soul shards, summoning people here to here to here to here to here, people logging out, you know, holding world buffs for 2 or 3, 4 days at a time, getting summoned to the raid after you've fished an ID, and then, you know, getting into the raid, and then, you know, like, it's just, I don't think that was intended. Like, I don't think that type of gameplay was intended. I don't think that's how they intended for the raids to be interacted with or engaged with. So I just think it's bad for the game. If I could change it, I would change it. I'm not a fan of it. He says world buffs crossed the line, CTBC. There you go. There you have a Vanilla-WoW OG actual guy that worked on the game designer saying world buffs crossed the line, so they removed them in TBC. So yeah, it's like one of those things. There's a lot of things that like fall in that category that I would count as just like, if it wasn't intended gameplay or intended gameplay design, I would be okay with changing it. In fact, I think of the Mark Kern interview. Before Classic came out, there was like a big article, it might have been with like Kotaku or something, where Mark Kern was talking about Classic and the potentiality of changes. And he was like, yeah, you know, if they're going to make any changes to Classic WoW or, you know, deviate from Vanilla WoW, I think it's fine, but you have to have like a Vanilla WoW sort of like manifest destiny. Like you have to keep in line with the original design philosophy of the game as it was intended. And if you want to make changes based like while tapping into that design philosophy, that's fine, do it. But the second you add something that obviously wasn't intended for, like, you know, transmog or something, like, you shouldn't do stuff like that. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, this might sound aggressive and like going too far, but I actually do think like the whole like world buff protocol, I would count that as like exploitative gameplay that has just like become part of the meta. Like honestly, I would. I'm just not a fan of it, like, frankly. But let me keep playing the video here.
And 128 flasks of distilled wisdom. They would have been using these like mana potions just to keep themselves going.
Another thing that I just thought of while watching this like consume part of the video, and I want to add before I move on, like when I say exploitative gameplay, I don't blame anyone. I mean, fuck, I've done it. I would speedrun and get all my world buffs every week, right? So, you know, it is what it is. But when I say exploitative gameplay, considering it is allowed and it's part of the game at the moment, you can't blame anyone that currently does it, right? You can't blame gamers for wanting to min-max and wanting to increase their performance and be competitive. And the reality is right now in the current classic environment is in order to be competitive and parse and be a hardcore gamer, you have to get those buffs. That's just the reality. I think it's a situation like, don't hate the player, hate the game. So I hate classic. No, it's just like I just think it's a bad part of the game. Like no game is perfect. I wish the whole world buff meta wasn't a thing. That's kind of my stance. Same thing on the multi-boxing thing. Like obviously multi-boxing is bad and detrimental for the game, and obviously they've kind of fixed it now. But yeah, like people like Staysafe, why do you hate multi-boxes? I don't hate people that multi-box. I hated that multi-boxing was allowed. I think it's bad for the game. I wish it wasn't allowed, and now it's not, thank God. But yeah, like if it's allowed, if you're not being punished for it, if it's always been part of the deal and people are doing it, then let people do it. It is what it is. But like another change I would make that I would consider also sort of like exploitative gameplay that has just become part of the meta because it's like an oversight from the original devs, the ability to flask pot, where you can pop flasks back to back to back to treat them as mana pots. Obviously, that's like an oversight. I don't think game developers, I don't think people like Kevin, when they're making the game back in 2004, expected people to spam flasks back to back like fucking mana pots, right? So I don't know, like if Blizzard came out and said, listen guys, in Classic WoW, we're gonna add a 5-minute cooldown to every flask, to every flask of Petrification and flask of Distilled Wisdom and flask of the Titans. We're gonna make it so you can't flask more than once every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever the fuck. I'm like, okay, good change. I'm for it. I think that'd be a good change. I have predicted with 100% accuracy every move you ever made in your whole life. Then you've predicted some disgusting things.
128 flasks. That is absolutely insane. And in case you're wondering, Progress, who are an Alliance guild, use 17 Distilled Wisdoms. Paladins actually OP. Like, they start getting really nuts in Naxx gear. In comparison, they use probably less regular consumables than your average guild. You know, things like your Nightfin Soup, your Greater Arcane Elixir, your Mongoose. And I'm thinking even now guilds are going to need to find a way to measure between cutting costs on consumables if you want to keep your raid going. The expectation to have everything for every raid, I reckon, is going to be one of the biggest attrition factors.
8 months. I
appreciate.
I just saw that. Thank you, man. Thank you,
world first competition. That's the
you.
lengths you have to go to really compete for that #1 spot. It may have been pretty short-lived, as every raid has so far, but for the first time, it made these best players in the world look mortal. And of course, keep in mind, this was from guilds with multiple raid rosters ready to log in, who do split runs, fully buffed and consumed, who have been raid logged for weeks, just to be able to benefit from the Darkmoon Fair buff. They've been preparing on the PTR. Many of these guys have already done the raid numerous times, if not back in the day in actual vanilla, then on fan servers since. And a bunch of them still wiped. Imagine when we see non-Darkmoon Fair week reclears, it's just not always going to be the smooth sailing.
Yeah, I said it before, you gotta hand it to Progress. Progress is the only guild that really had a good day one run. Like, that's just the truth. Progress on day one of Naxx fucking owned. And you can say, oh, they PTR'd, blah, 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 blah. Every guild PTR'd. All of those top guilds PTR'd. Some of them will deny it. Okay, whatever, dude. But hey, like, yeah, it's another thing. Like, obviously, I wish you couldn't PTR. I wish no one had any practice and you couldn't practice infinity times. Yeah, that would make it probably more competitive race and stuff. Like, PTR is kind of lame. And I say that as someone that PTR'd Blackmoon Lair, and I practice my Classic WoW speed leveling, and we PTR'd AQ40 also. It's like, you know, it's another situation. Like, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? I wish it wasn't a thing, but we live in reality, and people are going to do it because people are competitive. So it's like, hey, every guild PTR'd and Progress fucking owned. That's the truth.
Either the raid is just very punishing to any small mistake, as well as just being massive in length. The vast majority of guilds aren't going to be able to be propped up by the world buff crutch unless they do 2 raid nights either for a good long while to come. Good mechanical play can and has been shown to be able to overcome world buffs, which a lot of people have been relying on to frankly just skip mechanics or see bosses just fall over before they do anything. The raid is absolutely doable and is much more of a progression and mechanics check than anything we've seen so far, even for great players. So though the world first insanity of what goes into it in terms of the...
If the PTR didn't exist, the world first run would have been more scuffed. Saffron would have been broken, for example, necessary evil. Oh, no. I'm talking about, like, so super try-hard top guilds, they will set up their own private server for Naxx or AQ40 or whatever, and they will, like, on their private server, they can spawn themselves whatever gear, whatever consumes, they can give themselves whatever buffs they want. Like, they are GMs on their own Vanilla-WoW private server, and they will run the raid over and over and over and over and over to practice the nuance of every trash pull and every boss to perfect as much as they can their speed run or their day one run of this raid. So they can just, it's like when Goku went into hyperbolic time chamber, right? Like you PTR super hard and you come out, and over the course of like a week you can do Naxx 50 times if you want to dedicate that much time to the PTR, right? So it's like a hyper training environment.
Prep, the consumes, the multiple raid teams, the raid logging, it is what it is, but Naxx is shaping up to be a bit tougher than, well, certainly more so than I'd expected. But if you're more casual yourself, I wouldn't lose all hope. It's just going to be progression for once. This is what it's like. And one last thing I just want to add on around the costs of raiding. If you head in with world buffs, make sure you do the bosses that benefit greatly from them first. Get patchwork done. Head to Plague, kill Hygen before he does the dance, get Lotheb, and then just go from there and see what your raid can do. If you lose buffs, don't act like every pull has to be the kill. Do dry zero consume runs to check the mechanics, to get your team more comfortable of what's expected of them, to check no one has some unexpected issues like, I don't know, a pet bar not showing on Resuvius or Fairlina when you're mind controlling, some weak aura not working for healing rotations on Lotheb, or a kick rotation on...
Kevin, I've already practiced saying, hey, don't talk to my daughter. Hey, leave my daughter alone. I'm already practicing it. I'm already ready to be a dad. Just flash forward a couple years. I'm already going to start saying that. I'm ready. I'm ready to go, dude.
KT, just to double check everything's fine. The repair cost is
leave
nothing
my daughter alone.
to a round of consumables for any class. And the last thing you want is your progression to be cut short because you're just demanding too much of your players when realistically, there are very likely to be other improvements made first, but the answer isn't just I need to throw gold at the problem until the problem goes away. I'm really looking forward after the second reset to do a full review of the raid and how guilds are progressing on it so far. Anyways, let me know how you're getting on in Naxx Rammus, and best of luck in there, and have fun. As always, thanks all so much for watching and listening in, and I will see you in the next one very soon.
So let me link this video. I wonder... people play Classic for different reasons, right? I wonder if people, like the average Classic gamer, that's like obviously raids are easier in Classic than they are in like Mythic or Heroic, of retail raids. I wonder if people play Classic because they want easy raids where they can relax, not have to think very hard, and it's kind of like, kick a few beers back and have some laughs with the boys. Like, does anyone in Classic really give a fuck about hard raids? Is that even why they're playing? So it'd be an interesting poll or stat to figure out, like, do people that's a big boy, do people prefer harder raids in Classic? Are people happy with the difficulty of Naxx, or do they miss strolling into a raid and just like shitting on everything in 3 hours and then just peacing out, right? I'd be curious.